Date. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I do want to just make another reminder here of what our pacing guide looks like. So, as of this past weekend, hopefully, students have done all the work through Module 2. That's not the case, though. So, again, this is where I make my plea to you. If you could do a little checking just to see what has been completed or maybe what has not been completed in the course. If you're looking in PowerSchool, you should see a grade for this course. If you don't see a grade at all, I think they just put like a hyphen in there. That means no work's been done. So if you're seeing that, then obviously we need to get a little nudge to get moving in the course. If you only see a few grades, then maybe they need to get, kind of caught up here a little bit. But at this point, hopefully they finished all work through Module 2. And then there's 2 more modules remaining for this marking period. When we get to the 4th marking period, there will be 5 more modules that appear. So just so we kind of have that understanding. If you have any questions with that, if you're not sure what's going on, let me know. I say this all the time. The best grade book to look at is the Schoology grade book, whether it's your own account or whether you just have your child pull up the Schoology grade book. That breaks it down just as the course is, so it's a little bit easier to see where students are. So again, if you have questions, let me know. The last time I talked to you, we talked briefly about Module 1 and 2. I wanted to talk more about this Module 3. And as a person who's taught some people to drive in their life, this is the most important part of the entire process. It's not too challenging to do this, not too challenging to hit the brake or the accelerator or whatever it is. But the thinking process, that is the part that especially inexperienced people struggle with. So I want to go through what we have in the course here, and then I'm going to give you an example that you could potentially use in the future. So first of all, this first assignment that's here, what is risk? They are going to read a little bit of an article here. It talks a little bit about what risks are and then relates it to driving. So as a young person, young people tend to take more risks in their lives in general. That can be for a bunch of reasons, but we tend to see that. We also tend to have peers in our vehicle with us, and sometimes those peers can lead us to do things that we normally wouldn't do. So that whole peer influence can really come into play there. So hopefully this will give students a little bit of an understanding of just how important it is to understand that they are in control of a vehicle, and it could potentially impact their lives, the people in their vehicles' lives, and other vehicles that are on the roadway. Next part talks about this IPDE process, which stands for Identify, Predict, Decide, and Execute. I'm going to give you an example of that here, but this is just some literature with that. And then there's an Edpuzzle assignment that describes that a little bit more. Following distance. So I can remember growing up where we were so many car lengths behind another vehicle. And if you really think about it, how do you know what a car length is when you're traveling, especially if you're going at a fast rate? So the best method that we use anymore for following distance is time. So we want to be at least 4 seconds behind the vehicle in front of us. And if you actually pay attention to vehicles on the roadway, very few people are doing this, especially when you're traveling on an interstate, which is scary because you need more space to be able to react. And we actually end up getting closer to one another. So to figure out following distance, if I'm driving down the road, I look at the vehicle in front of me. When their vehicle hits a fixed object, a tree, a sign, whatever it is, when it gets to that point, it doesn't actually hit it, but when it goes past it, I'm going to start counting. And when my vehicle reaches that point, that gives me however far behind that vehicle I am. Again, we're reaching for 4. Bad weather, double it. It should be at least 8 seconds. We don't do a good job of this in general. Overall, people don't do a good job of establishing a good following distance. If we did, we would probably eliminate quite a few of the accidents that occur. The 6 zones, this is an Edpuzzle We break our vehicle down into 6 spots, or the space around our vehicle into 6 different spots. That's what that's looking at. This talks a little bit about what we see or what we should be looking for. This talks again about that time and space. All of these things, again, kind of come into this video here at the end, where it takes you through a series of different people who are traveling down the roadway and ultimately will get impacted by something that occurs. There is an assessment at the end. There's 12 questions. Students have to get 10 correct. So I want to break down this IPDE process for you. The first part is identifying, and this is what we're visually doing as we're in a vehicle. Most people tend to just put their blinders on and stare straight ahead, especially as a new driver. We stare straight ahead, typically at the ground in front of our vehicle. Hopefully, we're establishing some type of routine where we're looking in our mirrors, rear view mirror. We're checking our instrument panel to see how fast we're going. We're looking way ahead. We're looking to the sides. We establish this visual pattern. Again, as a new driver, we don't do that. So that's the identifying part. So I want to give you this example. We're driving down the road and we see this ahead, right? Now, I know there might be some of you out there that say, floor it. We're trying to avoid hitting an object here. Right? We're avoiding this. So as we're going down the road, visually, we see a deer off the side of the road. That's the identifying. I see the deer. The P stands for predict. We're going to predict what could potentially happen. In this case, we're going to predict the deer comes out in front of us. Right? It's a scenario most of us have probably been in. So the next part of it, the identify, predict, decide. This is where I come up with a plan. What am I going to do to avoid that potential hazard? All right, or what I'm going to predict might happen. In this case, it might just be laying off the accelerator a little bit, slowing down, whatever it is. And then the E is the execute part. This is what we physically do in our vehicle, how we manipulate our vehicle. So it could be to swerve, could be to slam the brake, could be to just press the brake nice and easy. Whatever the case is, we're doing this IPDE process constantly as we drive. And as more of an experienced driver, you don't notice it as much. Right? But as a brand new driver, if someone's never really done it before, they're constantly doing this, and they really need to think about this as they go down the roadway. If you have any questions about that, if you don't quite understand it, let me know. Again, that is kind of the process that we use constantly. One of the things you can do if you are beside a new driver is you can ask them to verbalize this process to you. What do you see as you're driving down the road? Tell me what you see. All right. And I think that's an activity that can really help young new drivers. That's all I'm going to show you for today. If you have any questions, please send me a message. I'll be back in a little bit to show you the last module of the third marking period. And that'll take us almost to the end, believe it or not, of the marking period, which is kind of rapidly approaching. Have questions, let me know. If not, hope you have a great week. Take care.